Hello and welcome to Access Chat. I'm very glad to be able to welcome Gregory White from Drop the Mask today. There's no Deborah, by the way. She's unfortunately had to be elsewhere today, but Antonio and I are very glad to be able to talk to Gregory. I was introduced to Gregory by one of my colleagues, and we had a fascinating conversation offline, and I thought that the first thing we needed to do was to bring that conversation online. So Drop the Mask is a CIC or community interest company. And Gregory, welcome. Can you tell us a little bit more about yourself and your journey to create Drop the Mask CIC?
Yeah, it's quite a long one and quite a short one at the same time. So I'm Gregory White. I founded Drop the Mask Productions, CIC, at the end of 2019, 4 months before the pandemic. And the reason I started it was I started a master's at Winchester University in the UK. And the reason I started that was because I've always had issues trying to fit in everywhere in my life, my whole life. And that struggle has been because of undiagnosed neurodiversity up to the age of 37, 38. I am dyslexic, ADHD, and what was at the time called Asperger's or high functioning autism. So I started to try and give myself a chance in my 50s. I really haven't got a really good back history of educational work when I'm young, or in my 20s or 30s. I've gone through a lot of treatment, support, medically, psychologically. I've been diagnosed when I was younger with paranoid schizophrenia and dissociation. And it's just that point of never fitting in anywhere. And I'm 6'5" and about 5 foot wide as well. 57 now, Drop the Mask, been going nearly 4 years. And I really did it and started it to give myself help with the modules in design and IT media, but also I wanted to look at augmented reality, virtual reality, and how that can be brought on to lower the division within the workforce and create a real low, flat hierarchy. So with my autism, I will go off and I have to be brought back to the question sometimes. But the reason for it is just to level off and give people the same accessibility or chances if they have education, not age, colour. If they sit upside down and type with one sock off and type 100 words a minute with their toe, or they can physically just blink, we see no difference. We see everything has to be towards an individual. So that's why it started, really selflessly, but selfishly in a way, to see what could be adapted to me, helping me in education as an MA, but also to start a company. And the reason it's a community interest company is because it's the communities, for me, the heart of the communities with IT and media that don't get the support. They usually get the oversell in the VCE sector, the voluntary community and social enterprise sector. But there you go. I started 4 months before the pandemic, and it was called Drop the Mask. So it wasn't the best name with the pandemic coming up. I hope that's enough for an introduction.
So that's super, and I think the painful irony that was in the name belies the fact that actually many neurodivergent people spend most of their life masking or like trying to fit in. So it's when we feel comfortable being able to not have to pretend to be someone that we're not, that we can really fulfill our potential. So I think that, COVID aside, I think that the naming is great. And so you're now producing, materials and you're doing this for paying clients, right? So you're an agent. You're essentially working like an agency. Is that correct?
So when I started December 2019, there was no financial. No. A lot of it for myself and a lot of people that I know that are neurodiverse. Quite a few of them are not great with money. They're not great with possessions and relationships. The whole lot. I'm not talking everybody, but certain people are neurodiverse, and some people I know are just not great at what's called the normal thing sometimes. And it's the adaptability that I started Drop the Mask with, owing about £600 and nothing else in the world, and an idea and a really bad laptop. Our first clients, proper clients, were NHS trusts. To the being when COVID hit, they wanted a way to still be able to have conferences, but in a way that they could have good bandwidth, show videos, change presenters. So we used small A10 Mini Pro equipment, and we attached it up to, we invested, or I borrowed some money, invested in good equipment, so we could do that remotely and have 400-500 people in a disability conference for an NHS trust. So, see, I already don't know what the question that was asked. I go off on one, but clients, sorry, private and public. So,
yeah.
What we've developed is a lot of it was grants to start with, and we had a national lottery grant here in England for a COVID grant, and we produced some videos, and it was around a lot of other CICs and charities in the local area. And from there, we've got private clients, paying clients, a lot more NHS trusts. There's about 5 or 6 we partner with now. But we partner with a lot of voluntary organisations and umbrella organisations, both doing their cyber, their IT and stuff. We've realised it's not the best they have. They don't have the best support or supply. And we're not trying to be perfect, but the way we are and the way we look at things different, we, as a CIC, we want to go and do what's right for the person or for the business, and the money follows. So, yeah. We want to be self-supporting within another year and a half.
Excellent. And I really like the CIC model, because it's not a charitable model, it's a social good model. And you're making money, you're employing people, and then a proportion of the profits goes back into supporting the community. And I think that this is a really great model for this, because often people get giving fatigue in terms of charities, or on the other hand, we've had those scandals where you find out that actually, a large proportion of the money that you've donated thinking it's going to a good cause is actually going to the charity in terms of administration and salaries and everything else. Whereas there is an honesty about CICs that you're a business, you're making money, but you have a purpose. And I really like that model, because it's a very straightforward model that I think aligns well with people's values. So I really support that, and I think that also we shouldn't be afraid of making good money from doing good things. So this is something I'm passionate about within my organisation that I work for, that we ought to be not seeing the work that we do that is inclusive, that is good for society, as charitable or on the periphery. It ought to be core to what we do, and it ought to be generating revenue and benefit to the organisation. Antonio, I think you've got a question.
No, I would like to know from Gregory, considering that you are producing events and considering that we have a lot of updates in technology that you use today to make them more accessible. I would like you to give us a kind of a brief how you are working to make sure that when you produce content, when you are doing events, that you make sure that everything is accessible.
So I think the most important thing, and a natural, clever way, is never to reinvent the wheel, but it's look for products or partners that are fully trustworthy, and like your Arthur Daly that does a good sell, and your products are really terrible, your links are high, and that is horrible. There's a lot of it out there. I think building trust for your products, your services, and when I say don't reinvent the wheel, we do web design in the sector. And what we do, we go with the fastest web servers, green web server company in the UK. We use that model for shared hosting. And then we also use a VPS hosting from the same company. And on that, we develop a non-back-end CRM that we can create databases in under 30 seconds just from speech, people that can't read or write. And we can build a basic full limited, but the software we use for that is not designed by us neither. It's somebody I've known for 20 years in Italy. And what we try to do with that is with the CRMs or the website, especially around the hosting, for us, what's important for us is GDPR. What's important for us is cyber safety. So everything they have and are absolutely 100%, well, not 100%, well, where it can be as safe as possible, we use those tools and put them together. So in web design, we use tools and we use plugins on WordPress on a platform that we love. And with anybody that we're able to host or design a website for, it's got AI built into those tools for people to be able to describe. And we're not scared of AI one bit. We know it's a prompting tool, and that's the best way. And that prompting tool we use to completely reduce the digital divide and the ability of being able to produce digital work, either for us or especially for clients. And it's fully supported then. And we can teach them without them knowing any back end, the old what you see, what you get. That's the type of thing we go to for our clients. So they're then able to use something that's, and the tools and the plugins, the ones we choose, are fully adaptable. We never need to do a redesign. A redesign can be continuous from them or our support. And everything we do, Antonio, along the lines of virtual reality, augmented reality, and mixed reality, to a point in a very small way for us as a community interest company, has to be the latest tech for safety mainly, but also adaptable to make it easy for people that don't have the same technical brain sometimes. But we like to close that gap to try and make it more accessible for anyone.
Excellent. Quick follow-up question on prompting. So it's great that you're in the wave of early adopters and you're using the tools and understanding that prompting is the key to getting results. How are you teaching people to prompt well? Because essentially it's rubbish in, rubbish out. So has this been especially given that you, amongst the sort of neurodivergent community, you've got people that quite often have communication challenges, and it's a communication process.
So I'll explain that. Rubbish does go in and does come out for the people that struggle, the people that are near to illiterate or literate. On a prompting tool for them, if they can put 3 or 4 words in type in, or they can speak a sentence which is clearer, when that output comes out for the website or for a blog or whatever it needs to be, they will sit with one of our directors or one of our volunteers or interns at the moment. There's usually, and there's other CICs that our power is in collaboration of not growing internally, but growing now several organisms together as a larger CIC across the Solent area in the south of England. And what we do when we work with people, we do a lot on training. We do a lot around IT training, Word, Excel as well, basic stuff. But what we do after that prompting is sit with them and develop from what they prompted. We want them to have the first idea. The words, the sentences, the structure is not exact, but they're quite happy to sit down and hear what changes need to be made. And that's the prompting tool for us, allows them to feel like they can do something with that support. And with us being completely flat hierarchy, we don't allow the pointing of fingers here, and we don't allow deadlines. The only person that has deadlines is me. I will absorb those deadlines. I think the people that work with us understand. We'll completely drop the mask as a company as well as individuals and explain our processes. I don't think we've ever been late on any work at all because there hasn't been a set deadline once people get to know who we are. So it seems to work with the prompting, and it's just that support to not have the embarrassment, whatever, it empowers.
Some people might say that the machines are taking over, but on the other side, there's also interesting studies that point out that this technology is open opportunities for different type of people and is actually helping us to be more innovative. Do you see that the fact that your colleagues and people that work with you have that help with the prompting that helps them to create content and somehow bring different perspectives to what you want to achieve?
Absolutely. For me, which we really loved, and it was ideas of wanting to live a different way with myself and others, and give that support to be completely who you are and your transparent self. That's why obviously it's drop the mask, is drop all the masks. We feel we have an open door policy here. We're sat within a voluntary organisation that covers the whole of Southampton, called Southampton Voluntary Services. But our rooms, we have an open door policy. What we try to have is a complete trust issue, and that support system. We have a quiet room, we have a neurodiverse room with a covered light, soft toys, furnishing, a couch. Anytime anybody wants to take that break. If we're set in the right environment and enough desk space, and we always talk to an individual, if they're a volunteer, if they're an employee, what if internship, work experience, we don't tell them what work we're doing. So if it's coding, if it's Unity, we like to build marketing tools with games through maths with people that find it hard. And what we try to do is we have them working with people, some neurodiverse and some not, to build the code, to teach and learn. We feel if you create the right environment and don't put things on to people, get to know that individual. What do you like doing? How do you do it? What's your favorite? If we build that small micro environment around for them, for each individual, we've seen some amazing results of just people being who they are. It just drops so many masks for people. I feel that the environment and how you are and the hierarchy is so important, although the flatness of the hierarchy helps. Still structure, by the way, still structure, but the hierarchy is just something I don't enjoy. Neurodiverse, no.
So, Antonio and I both work in a massive multinational. There is hierarchy plenty, but I agree with you. I pay not that much heed to whether someone's at the bottom or the top of the hierarchy, and I tend to treat them in the same way as a human being. And I believe that the people that you pass on your way up are also going to be there when you're on your way down. So you better be nice to them, because you don't stay up all the time. So when you're enabling people in this way by asking them what they like and what they're good at, does that that enables them to participate in these productions of conferences, websites, blogs, etc. Is the aim to keep them on the books of your CIC, or are you also building up skills so people are going out into the wider community, getting themselves?
So, shall I give you some examples?
Yes, please.
Examples where, so just in the 3.5 years and not start, we've had no financial support, because who would give I'm not talking about other neurodiverse companies, banks, whatever, but literally who would give investment to a 54-year-old man that's had 30 years of severe mental health, that's ticked, nodded, not gone out most of his life. Myself, I've done jobs that are quite, as security, as an engineering, steel erecting, all stuff that I don't use my brain, because my comparison has always been, I am so thick, nobody understands, I'm under everybody else's intelligence. And that my way with my neurodiversity for most of my life, that's what I saw. Quite depressing. I suffered from depression and that. And what I realized from that and starting Drop the Mask is what we have to invest in is the people first. And to get to know somebody, the best way is not to ask them questions too much. It's ask about what they like. It's not trying to ask questions around family. It's asking what they like and what they're about. And patiently, 3 or 4 of us, and it breeds into other people, is that they tell you. So we give that to them. We had one intern on a project. He could only work 1 day a week. That's his capabilities. We heard him. But the first week he sat here, he doesn't speak many words at all. Very reserved, a young man. When he sat down, he just wrote Unity on a bit of paper. So we uploaded on a double screen with Unity, and I had a chat really gently, given space, and said, "What would you like to do?" So he wrote down and said, "I'd like to do a snake game." So at the end of that first day, we just heard that we heard the keyboard going faster than we ever heard. We're surprised his fingers didn't have friction burns. At the end of the day, he designed a whole game. The second week we came in, I said, "Would you like to develop it further?" That second week, he developed it with walls and a cash pot shop for getting extra lives. And then in the third week, I said, "Would you like to try something else that you're interested?" And he spoke and said, "One more, like to do one more, Greg." I said, "Oh, great." So at the end of the day, about an hour to go, somebody said to me, "I think that young man, Greg, is he's videoed his the snake game on Unity, and he's watching it back over." So I went over and said, "Oh, great. What have you done this time?" He went, "Oh, I just typed in AI so it can learn for itself where food is and how it travels." And the other people in the office in tears of like, wow, what do we create? That openness for somebody to show what they do, perhaps in their own time, and be valued as being good enough. He's gone on to work. We probably had 25 short work experiences from city council, from links from NHS, and people supporting people in addiction, people supporting people with mental health. They come through to us, not necessarily stayed. It's sometime, or most of the time, it's been their first work experience. And I'm talking ages from 17 through to 67. They've gone on to work or to other education. And I think it's just a confidence given in the type of environment it is and that space for them to have that confidence that no one's laughing at them or saying, "I'm better or worse than you." That's what we've seen so many times here. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic. Being able to, open up someone's capabilities and their confidence and finding what lights them up, because we all have something that lights us up in terms of our interest and our engagement and brings us out of our shell, and for each person's particular thing is going to be different, but by focusing on interest and passion, you're able to coax out and coach people in a way that I think more traditional methods would probably fail. And most of these people, the systems fail. Not neuroatypical people frequently, because the schooling system fails us because you're expected to behave in a certain way. You said that you felt thick. I certainly didn't understand prior to diagnosis why, as someone that was supposed to be intelligent, I couldn't do things that my peers could do, which impacted my own mental health. So by focusing on the passion and the things that we are good at, you're starting to help people realize potential that's been untapped for years. So credit to you for that. Antonio, I see you have another question.
Greg, how do you were talking about one of your colleagues that was developing a game. How do people reach you? How do you reach them? How does that work?
It was really hard to start with because my networking was 0 people. We did the remote conferencing for an NHS trust in the south, and they have a which I think is absolutely fabulous. They have a community partnership, so there's loads. There's a couple of hundred people on the trust as community partners. So that's groups, organisations, CICs, small charities. They're all community focused. The first few bits of work we've done and tried to structure around IT support, hardware, software, remote support. And we probably had, from my head, somebody said, Greg, can you empty your head from the last 30 years? And I did. And they said, is that empty? And I went, well, I've emptied it for everybody to understand and put it on loads of sheets of paper and whiteboards. And I said, it's about 1% empty, but we can take it again in a while. I seriously have all this stuff that I want to get out. We got to know of not ego driven or nothing about the money. It was how we do things. We do it for the right reason for the person. And as we got the products and people, they've gone to larger profit-driven IT or media companies, and they get a really bad service. And there's firewalls that don't work. There's services we look, and I feel embarrassed because I didn't know the sector was like that, or maybe business a bit in its own. And that stuff I've never been around for years is really, when we've got it working and other organisations or people saying, oh, how is your server these days? Oh, no, Drop the Mask took us away from server-based. We're on a 365 platform, blah, blah, blah. We're all cloud-based with protection and this and blah, blah, blah. And it's more word of mouth the last year. The last 3 years, I've been developing products that we can properly sell for the right reasons in the sector to support the people that's needed at the right cost. And it's only the last 2-3 months I've got to a place where I've borrowed from the bank first time in my life, knowing that I could, to invest, own director's loan, my own money, and my partner has done the same. She left a job, 20, 30 years of training, 2 or 3 companies, and said, I need to come to Drop the Mask and train. I need to be a director. And she's invested money, because what we want to do and where we're happy now, and it follows on from the question of tech or knowledge and making sure it's up to date, is getting it right for the people that we want to support. So we don't care if it's what size company or whatever. Our ethos is that we work with people that are not going to be bad for our clients. Us as a community, as a organisation, that our staff are not going to be affected by people shouting or screaming from companies. So we've learned to choose wisely, because otherwise we've had a couple and our mental health goes really poor. So it's word of mouth, I think, Antonio, us trying to do the right thing. And people say, can you be perfect to what we do? And we say, we think our limit in everything we do is about 80% perfect. And they laugh. And we say, but it is. We usually surpass that, but we concentrate on being 80% perfect. It just takes the pressure off everyone not to be perfect. And I think it's just word of mouth and the products we're doing in this sector. And it's massive to get right and people being oversold, under supported. So I think it's just because we're doing the right thing for people and a different way of working business.
Excellent. I think one of the most important concepts I learned when I was doing my master's in the end was satisficing. The idea that actually you don't have to be perfect, that you do just enough to produce a satisfactory result, and if you don't constantly strive for perfection, you don't put yourself under that stress that is actually more likely to trip you up. I mean, I see so many people that are perfectionists struggling and failing because they're striving for perfection, and actually what's needed is less. And that there are times when you want to put in efforts and do something that's got all the bells and whistles, but it's not all the time. So it's choosing them. And I like the fact that you're choosing your client based upon how they then impact the community that you've employed. I think that's really smart.
Yeah. Can I just speak about another client that we had, or clients we have, if that's okay? I'm not talking too much. Sure. I love to chat about this so much. The NHS, several, we're not picking on one NHS, one department, one trust or anything. But what we found with our ethos and working with trusts is that for a long time, they're setting away and their own organism, how they work, especially with a lot of hierarchy, with banding and everything that's pushed to a point. Now, I'm not talking on the medical side, I'm talking more of trust on the community side or mental health side, and working with those community partners. What we've found right from the start is that they really care and do a lot for community, but they celebrate themselves a lot and not the people they're working or paying grants to do for. And the worst thing we found out was we got a PO number for a large bit of work, which make us secure for 3 or 4 months, give us a bit of cash flow for a change. We had to wait 13 months of the payment because the PO was lost 4 times. This was lost, boss's way, this a holiday. It happened 3 or 4 times with other trusts, and I did feel quite suicidal coming into work, driving one day. Not that I would, and I do. If I've gone too far and talking about suicide,
No,
for me, I have to have my true feelings said or what it is. And I phoned the trust and said, this can't keep happening. Why does it happen? And from 2 or 3 trusts, they said it's set in stone, there's red tape. POs, another one can only be raised. And nobody had the idea of what each one or the legal stuff could do. So I asked for a meeting with a couple of the trusts and said, how can this be changed around? Let me tell you, if nobody else before, this is really affecting mine, nobody else's mental health, worrying about payments or wages, us living, because I'm sure that none of you will, and you'll get your pay every month. When we looked at it and they give me the reasons why they couldn't do it, with my autism, I cut out a lot of words. So when I read, I'm structurally, I read 2 pages at a time, and I see words as objects mainly. So I cut that. So I went and did the research and come back, and they said it's going to take 2 years maybe to change. I went back with the evidence. I've never shouted, never screamed. I went back and had a nice conversation with them over 2 hours. And from that conversation with 2 trusts, there's an MOU in place now, memorandum of understanding. Anybody within the community, for 2 to 3 trusts down there in the south, gets paid 50% before starting work within 15 days. There's a scope of work done that we're introducing to other CICs and stuff with the trust to have that shoulder-to-shoulder fairness and us being treated responsibility. We weren't neither. We were seen sometimes as an extension to their staff with unexpected work. It's a bit more, that's gone deadline, we're waiting for this. We had to put this in place really politely. So that surprised me. But for me and others, I have to do what I feel is right. Not being a hero, but being right for everybody, for us, our clients, who they're supporting. And the relationships now are really unbelievable. They don't feel like it's an HS in a community organisation. It feels quite friendly and quite a bit more level and a bit more respectful. So
I think that's brilliant. I think that payment upfront is really massively important. It's unfortunate that Deborah couldn't be with us today because she's the one that runs a small business, and so she would absolutely empathize with you about long payment terms, and us working in large bureaucracies can tell you how difficult it is to manage the processes and find the people and navigate that with the best will in the world. I don't think that there's anyone in these places that intends not to pay small companies, but it's easy for stuff to fall between the gaps, and because they don't have that sort of human relationship view of the impact on individuals, it continues to happen. It's writ large across that small business, large organization relationship around the world. So the fact that you've now got a float up front means that's the difference between an organization surviving and not. So that creates that long-term sustainability for the work you're doing. So congratulations. I know that we have reached the end of our time. I want to thank you so much for all of the work that you're doing and for coming on and being our guest today. I really look forward to us continuing the conversation on Twitter, and I need to thank my ClearText for keeping us captioned and accessible, and Amazon for supporting us and keeping us on air. Thank you very much, Gregory.
Thank you both for asking me. I really appreciate it. Thank you.